everybody, I'm Zenith and welcome back to the Disney debate. Oh my god, it has been... How long? It has been so long since the last... It has been, like, incredibly long since the last time I uttered that phrase, these words.
For the first time in forever. Sorry.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Disney debate. And while we're here, a big happy holidays, Merry Christmas, happy Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, Festivus, Ramadan, whatever it is that you celebrate or don't celebrate, happy and merry to you. And if you do not enjoy the holidays, that I hope you have someone to spend your time with, and I hope it is a pleasant time for you.
And if not, happy shut the fuck up.
And with that, I want to reintroduce my co-host, Kat Macberrie.
Hello. Hi, everybody. It's good to be back.
And, of course, to the universal direction of up, down, left, right, center is Doug Macberrie. How's it going, Doug?
Bah humbug.
I'm hearing that.
And we are here today to discuss another Disney film, but another thing to note before we begin, this is our official 75th episode.
Yay!
This is the 75th episode of the show. This is a huge milestone, especially since we kept, having to stop and start due to various different things, and we're happy to be back in the saddle, but 75, we're close to 100, guys. Let's keep this podcast train rolling.
Hopefully it doesn't take us another 5 or so years to do it.
Now you've gone and jinxed it. Now it's going to take 10.
God damn it.
And for our 75th and Christmas-themed episode, we decided that we wanted to touch upon something that is very special to our hearts. Last year, we discussed Mickey's Christmas Carol, and that was a very different experience for me because I had never seen it, and Kat had. But today we're talking about something that we have all seen, and that is quite interesting and quite enjoyable. We are talking about Muppet Christmas Carol, and the Muppets. Oh my god, where do I begin with the Muppets? The Muppets are a staple of comedy home entertainment. They're wholesome, they're fun, and they're entertaining, they're funny. They are just everything that you want out of a primetime cable show. I never really watched the Muppets growing up, but I always remembered the movies, specifically Muppet Treasure Island. Now, we'll get to that in the future. We will get to that because that is my favorite Muppet movie of all time. But, the Muppet Christmas Carol is also quite enjoyable. It holds a very special place in my heart. Kat, what is your history with the Muppets and this specific movie?
Oh, I freaking love the Muppets. It was that growing up, my favorite Muppet movies was, of course, this, The Christmas Carol, and it was also The Great Muppet Caper. Those are the two big ones I owned growing up. And, of course, I love all the other ones that came out later on, Muppet Treasure Island and all that. But in terms of, like, regular Muppets, like, I actually did watch some of the TV show growing up, like, on reruns and all that. And, of course, they would periodically show up in Sesame Street every once in a while. So, yeah, I totally dig the Muppets. I love them so much. And, like, even, like, the crappy, like, TV show, like, specials they would do later on, like, I wouldn't call them crappy. I would say, like, not up to par as their past stuff. I still watch it, and I still greatly enjoy it. Especially because, they do like to go down the adult humor route every now and again, and it's just so damn funny. So, and in terms of this movie, I didn't see it in theaters. I was a bit young, but I did own the VHS, so like I watched it every Christmas. Like every Christmas. I could probably recite this movie line for line by heart if I wanted to.
And Master Doug, what about you?
Well, I definitely grew up with the Muppets. Like my favorite thing to watch was Muppet Babies. Like I would get up really early in the morning to watch it. Like I think I still have a CD of like Muppet Babies go into space or something like that. But it's like, yeah, I really love the Muppet Babies. I would watch what you call it, the Muppet Show. Would rerun on Nickelodeon a lot, so I'd watch that. Um, I remember watching Muppets Tonight.
Yeah. That.
I didn't really watch any of the Muppet movies until much later on. Yeah, I mean, I can't, and of course, yes, I watched Sesame Street too. I remember mostly Kermit from that in his like trench coat getup, and but yeah, I mean, that was pretty much my experience with the Muppets. Yeah, I didn't really watch any of the Muppet movies until I met Kat, although I did watch Muppet Christmas Carol first when I was young. I think I remember renting it from Blockbuster. Yeah, that should tell you how long ago it was. Uh, and yeah, because I think I had recently, my Glee Club had done a performance of the Christmas Carol for one of the concerts back when I was, in like fourth or fifth grade. So I wanted to watch a version of the Christmas Carol. And yeah, like I said, I saw Muppets Christmas Carol. I remember not liking it all that much back then. And having rewatched it now, I don't hate it, but I still don't like it that much. I think there are better Christmas carols out there, better Muppet movies, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, I definitely like it better than I did then, probably because I was a little biased. But yeah, it's not one of my favorites. Let's put it that way.
So, if Blockbuster Video was out at that time, you must have watched it on, what, Betamax or something like that?
VHS.
How old do you think we are? Jesus.
I never had a Betamax.
I know, you're the same age as I am, pretty much, but I still like to tease. As for me, I did grow up with the Muppet Babies. I mean, they make your dreams come true, so it's like, it was such a fun time. I remember watching those a lot as a kid. And the first Muppet movie I ever saw as a kid, I went to my my friend Kurt's house. Now, Kurt was, his dad was a friend of my dad's. His father was a chiropractor, so we would like go over and hang out. And so they put on Muppet Treasure Island to entertain us while they were upstairs doing stuff. And to this day, that is one of my favorite movies of all time. It holds up as one of just this classic film, and I can't wait to like touch upon this for the show, but that's not today. Anyway, I saw this, and I immediately fell in love, not just with Tim Curry, but with the Muppets in general, and I started watching other movies. I remember watching the Muppets in Space. I remember watching that a lot. And I remember liking it as a kid. I don't know if I'd like it now, but I remember watching the original Muppet movie. Never saw the Great Muppet Caper, and then I saw Muppet Christmas Carol. Like my Muppet knowledge is like here and there because my parents would let me rent like certain things. I would be able to rent like one VHS from the small video store every so often. So it's like I would watch a lot of like different movies, and I wouldn't see all the Muppets. But like during that time is when I was like entertaining myself and expanding my knowledge of different videos, and that's when I saw all these things as a kid. So I have a pretty intimate knowledge of the Muppets never really watched the Muppet shows, and so like a lot of my knowledge comes from the movies. But I really do enjoy this film. When I saw Muppet Christmas Carol for the first time, I didn't like it quite as much as Treasure Island, and I think I think it's not quite as good quality-wise, but I will say that I do enjoy this film, and I think it's something that everyone should see at least once. Kat, why don't you give... this seems like an obvious thing. Like, most people should know the plot by now if you've seen Christmas Carol, because like it's pretty standard literature right now. But why don't you give us just a brief summary of the movie?
Sure, let me try. It's Christmas Carol with Muppets. There you go. I mean, honestly, that's what it is. Like, the film tries to, like, stay to the original story, just they replace certain characters with Muppets. So, you know, it's your typical, like, story, you know, gritty old miser, hates Christmas, treats everyone like shit. He gets visited by the ghost of his old buddy, who says that he has to repent his ways, and that 3 spirits are going to visit him and try and change his mind. So, yeah, there it is. Just, you know, take that and put Muppets. There you go.
So yeah, it's a pretty standard story. Like, obviously, the Christmas Carol has been done to death. There's been so many different adaptations, so many different versions. It's really hard to say what is the definitive one anymore, because there's just so many of them. But I think we all can we all can say that we've seen at least a version of it, and we all have our favorites. But I think the beauty of Christmas Carol is that because there are so many different adaptations, so many different versions, that it becomes interesting to see all the different takes on it. It starts to be more defined not by the story itself, but what the adaptation brings to the table. And in my opinion, what this film brings is a lot of humor and a lot of meta and a lot more fun to the table. It does lose some things in the adaptation, and we will go over that, but wouldn't you say that this is a much more fun rendition of the tale?
I would, in a sense. Like, they definitely try to add more humor to it, because, I mean, this is like old Victorian England where, you know, a lot of people were poor, and, you know, disease was rampant, and, you know, not everybody was exactly nice to each other and all that, but, you know, like, the Muppets try to add, like, a little brightness, a little color to it, and, you know, for the most part, you can see it. It's, like, it's fun. Like, they try to add interesting visuals by throwing in, like, a bunch of random Muppets here and there, doing, like, their own little things, and, you know, making little references and whatnot. I gotta say, though, I'm a bit horrified by this universe, though, because both their food source, you know, their animals and the vegetables, they're all sentient and they talk. And I just think to myself, how does that work? Like,
this seems like I think PETA's gonna sue somebody.
Like, dear God, like, they have singing vegetables, and they have, like, you know, like, the chickens that, one of which, you know, Gonzo dated in the previous movies, and it's like, they're up for slaughter. I'm like, this is messed up. Like, and they're, like, Muppets, too, so you got Muppets murdering Muppets who are, like, sentient and have lives and stuff and can think for food.
Yeah, it is a bit disturbing when you think about it. What do you think, Mr. Doug?
Jim Henson was dead as could be. Oh, sorry, I'm imitating Gonzo, imitating Charles Dickens.
Way to bring down the mood, Doug.
Wait a second. I thought Gonzo was Charles Dickens.
I did appreciate Gonzo as Charles Dickens, and like having Rizzo all confused and stuff, and having him like trying to be, you know, try to be balancing seriousness with being wacky, and it's like And then there's the whole idea of, Gonzo as the author breaking and entering into the house of the character that he's telling the story about. It's just stuff like that. I appreciate that about what they tried to do with the adaptation with the Muppets. So yeah, I did have fun with certain aspects of it. I felt like other times, like, they could have gone a little, more crazy with stuff. Like, I guess, I think, like, Fozzie as, what's his name?
Fozziewig.
Fozziewig, yeah, was kind of underutilized. Like, they probably should have had him a little more. I know he's really only in the one scene, although they do show him and the Sam the Eagle school teacher at the very end as, like, old folks in. But it's like, there was that, but then there was also, like, stuff I'm not sure about in, like, having the rats all as the workers at Marley and Scrooge's place. It just felt like a bit much at times.
I mean, like, there are definitely times where I'm wondering kind of how this world works, especially since the labor is mice and they're barely big enough to, like, move around these books. And to a certain extent, I think that it kind of clashes a little bit, and I do agree that some of the characters are underutilized. If you look at any of the other Muppet adaptations, they find better uses for these characters. It's just in the way they adapted this specifically that several of these characters are kind of used for one scene, even though they're supposed to be around throughout the book and have importance. It's just, right here they have to take out the darker aspects, and that does kind of hurt it a little bit.
Well, from what I read, the Muppets were actually going to play kind of more of a role. Like, for instance, the three ghosts, they were supposed to actually be like some of the characters. Like, I believe they were going to have, like, Scooter as the Ghost Christmas Past, and then Miss Piggy as the present, and then Gonzo as the future. But they kind of opted to just have the characters be like brand new puppets and have, because they kind of felt like the original characters would have ruined kind of the mysticism of them, and the fact that they were supposed to be spiritual and everything. So they created brand new forms of puppetry in order to, like, bring the characters to life. So, like, and also the fact that that their Scrooge is played by a human, as is his nephew and, like, other characters. Like, because this is, like, the first time they actually have, like, a human, like, actually starring in a Muppet movie, because usually it focuses on Kermit or, like, the group of the Muppets. So, and, like, to have them not, like, focus on humans and basically, like, it feels like they were trying to tell another, like, human version of the Christmas Carol, but then they just inserted Muppets into it. It's kind of what it feels like in a bit.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I feel like some of the changes do work. First of all, I know it was done just for a joke, but Fozzie as Fezziwig, because the original character's name is Fezziwig. So Fozziewig is just too perfect a pun not to make. It really does work.
Waka waka.
And I really did love Gonzo as the narrator. Rizzo's bits, I think, worked well as well, but Gonzo, like, knowing exactly when something is going to happen, and, like, there are little things with Gonzo that I think really work for the story and enhance it much more than just an adaptation. But it's just, like, him interacting with the cast and getting bumped by the little boy when he runs away. Like, there are some good meta jokes.
Yeah, I heard that, like, the reason they wanted to do that is because they wanted to actually incorporate lines from the book into the dialogue, like, not just from the characters, but also from, like, the book itself. And they felt that, having, like, Gonzo doing it would not only, like, add humor, but a bit of levity to certain scenes and stuff. And plus, he and Rizzo act sort of like a Greek choir, like, given their, like, their take on everything that's going on, sort of like a third-person riff track sort of way.
Yeah, like, honestly, that aspect of the film is probably the best to me. Them making Gonzo the narrator, and Rizzo his kind of like skeptical audience worked for the story. It really did. And honestly, if they got anything right, it's that.
Although I do like that they kind of cut them out during the scenes with Ghost of Christmas Future, because they realize that this is supposed to be some like serious heavy shit, and that those two would kind of detract from that. So I am kind of glad that they kind of put them off to the side until that was all over, just to create that emotional like punch.
We'll see you again at the end of the movie.
Hey guys, we're back. We told you we would be.
So I think, starting with that casting, Gonzo, Rizzo, great job. They do great with that role. What do you guys think of Michael Caine as Scrooge? Doug?
I don't know what exactly to think of him. I felt like some of what he did felt very phoned in, but I feel like as it went on, like as you get closer and you get into like the Ghost of Future, where he actually is, more to the front versus, being in the background, it does get improved. But yeah, like other times I just feel like he's just kind of there. He's not really like giving a performance. He's just kind of reading lines, just kind of saying things, not really, putting a lot of emotion into it. But yeah, like I said, once you get to like the Ghost of Christmas Future, then I feel like his performance gets a little stronger because it has to be him. You have to rely on his performance since you're not getting anything other than pantomime from the Ghost of Christmas Future.
I mean, to the man's credit, he is acting around puppets. Like, the fact that he's able to, like, keep a straight face and not, mug for the camera or act as goofy as they are, like, is a testament to his acting ability.
In my opinion, I think when he's acting as the Scroogiest, like, parts of himself in the beginning, I think it's good acting, but I think Michael Caine is just too likable a person to fully accentuate how miserable and mean Scrooge is.
I guess I can see that. I don't know, because I grew up with him as Scrooge, so I never saw like his roles before then. So to me, I thought he played like the meanness and like the intimidation of Scrooge really well. Like especially at the beginning when they introduce him with the song "Here Comes Mr. Scrooge." Like, you see him, like, he shows up in shadow, and they're only showing him from, like, the feet down and everything, and, like, when he turns around at the end and, like, looks at everyone's like, the fuck you talking about me? Like, I thought that was, like, pretty intimidating. So, I know, I personally do like him as Scrooge. Like, I agree now that I've seen other roles of his, and, like, I look back on it now, it's like, yeah, like, he's not as hardcore as I thought he'd be as Scrooge, but I don't know. I like his performance personally, and like I said, it takes a lot of acting ability to be able to to be able to play it straight faced around puppets, like, because I mean, like there's this quote here that he told Brian Henson when he was cast. He's saying, "I'm going to play this movie like I'm working with the Royal Shakespeare Company. I will never wink. I will never do anything Muppety. I'm going to play Scrooge as if I am in an utterly dramatic role and there are no puppets around me." It's like, on the one hand, it's like you kind of gotta notice that sort of stuff. And on the other hand, I can kind of see where he's coming from, because Christmas Carol is supposed to be sort of like a dramatic thing, and he's trying to play it to the best of his ability, regardless of all the goofy shit that's going on around him.
Personally, I can see both sides, because, well, I do agree with Doug on the fact that I think he's not as intimidating as I would have liked in the beginning, but I do agree with you that his opening number, his introduction, is very well done. Where I think he really shines, though, is in the Ghost of Christmas Future section, where he bawls his eyes out and like pours his soul out. And then when afterwards, when he's all happy and like he's dancing and like there's a lot of parts to the happy part of Scrooge that I think he does such a fantastic job that he's not worth it writing off. I think he does a great job. I just, after seeing the George C. Scott version, it's not quite as Scroogey as I would like.
Well, how can you compare to George C. Scott? The man was like meant to play like a humbug. Like, let's face it. Also, interesting thing, like as I was doing research on this, I never knew this before, and it's not until they pointed it out to me. Because at the end, where he's going around town and stuff, he passes a store called Micklewhite. And apparently this was a little wink and nod to Michael Caine himself, because for those who don't know, Michael Caine isn't Michael Caine's real name. His real name is Maurice Micklewhite.
What?
Yeah.
Maurice Micklewhite.
Micklewhite.
Whoa, slow down, Maurice.
Wow. Wow. Maurice Micklewhite. I mean, yeah, it's not as bad as, say, Farkas and Eugene, but yeah.
I just thought that was a nice thing, and now I learned something. I feel closer to him now.
So we have our main components here. We have our lead, which I think is pretty good. It might not be up to your Scroogey standards for some people, but I think it's perfectly serviceable. I like the stuff with Gonzo and Rizzo. Now we get to the casting of the spirits. First of all, Jacob Marley, or in this case, we have Marley and Marley, played by Statler and Waldorf. Now, I'm of a couple minds of this. One, I think it's odd that they put them in a role where, they had to invent a separate character because there was only one Jacob Marley. There wasn't Robert Marley. On the other hand, they steal the entire movie, so I don't give a damn. Their musical number to me is my favorite number in the film, hands down. I just love when they come on and they're cracking jokes. And during the middle of their number, it's like, oh yeah, there was this time we evicted an entire orphanage. I'm like, oh god.
Honestly, like, I can see that. I can see them being those type of, like, characters in real life.
Yeah.
Like, all we ever see them are, like, hecklers in a theater. I can imagine them being, like, asshole businessmen on top of that.
I mean, it makes so much sense.
Yeah, like, and you gotta admit, that is unique. Like, you never see that in the other Christmas Carol adaptations. You never see two characters that, like, portrayed as one. And I can kind of understand why they did it, because with the exception of Ghost of Christmas Future, Jacob Marley really is kind of like a terrifying figure for kids to, like, watch. Like, if you look at the earlier, like, the earlier Christmas carols, whenever they show him, like, he looks like traumatized and everything, dragging his chains, and he's all zombified, and, like, at one point he, like, takes off, like, the scarf that's wrapped around his head, and his jaw just falls open, like, he can't even keep his mouth closed. Like, that's legitimately disturbing. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they went in the complete fucking opposite direction with these two, like, was just great. I love it, and I love their song.
They gave the Muppet chains and suitcases that sing.
Yes. Well, we know everything in this universe is sentient, apparently, so...
Oh, God, I love it.
But here's the thing. I have a theory as to why specifically they went with these two for the role of Jacob and Robert Marley. So, as many of you probably know, this is the first Muppet movie after Jim Henson's death, as well as puppeteer Richard Hunt. And here's the thing, a lot of you might not know, Jim Henson and Richard Hunt were the original voices for Statler and Waldorf.
Oh.
Which meant that, they died by the time this movie came out, and the two characters they the two characters they voiced were also dead in this movie.
Oh, whoa, okay.
I know, wrap your head around that.
That's actually a pretty interesting bit of trivia there. I was not expecting that. Another thing we noticed while watching the film was that one of the shops in the background, if you like pause on one of them on the shot, it has the name Statler and Waldorf on the shop, but it's blocked by a couple things.
Yeah, I noticed that too. It was just kind of ironic when you think about it, considering that they own another company in town with Scrooge, or at least they did.
Doug, what are your thoughts on Marley and Marley?
So I think for me as a kid, that's one thing that I can pinpoint to not liking the movie as a kid, because I think, well, I was diagnosed with Asperger's as a child, and with Asperger's, it's like you can kind of have a hard time dealing with changes, and it's like, I was kind of a very strict, they should be doing it like this, they should be doing it like that kind of mood. So when they have it split, Jacob Marley split into two characters, that was a non-starter for me back then. I have since reneged on that, and actually did find myself enjoying their performance as Marley and Marley. So yeah, I mean, I definitely thought they were fun. I mean, I've always liked Stantler and Waldorf, and they're just, they're jokes at the expense of everybody in the theater, how they troll everybody, and then their hearty laughs. Oh, ho, 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 ho.
Oh, look, it's Ebenezer Scrooge, looking older and more miserable than ever. I knew he wouldn't disappoint us.
Oh, decrease the surplus population. Oh, you're always we're one of the men with jokes.
I do like that they showed them living too, and they're like still heckling the way they do on the show. It's like that was a speech. It was dumb. It was boring. It was short. I loved it.
And to be honest, I can definitely understand your perspective, kind of growing up, because I mean, I have OCD, so like if certain things are in a certain way, it is sometimes a sticking point. So I can understand you not liking it back then. It is a big change from the original. But if they're going to adapt it, they might as well adapt it in a special way. And I think this film does that more. And Marley and Marley is one of my favorite segments of the film.
Totally. Mm-hmm. And honestly, that never bothered me. But then again, Muppets Christmas Carol was one of the very first Christmas carols that I ever watched, in addition to Mickey's Christmas Carol. And I think there was like one other one. But the point being is that I was more used to the cartoony version, like a more goofy version of Marley, so it didn't bother me as much, or if at all. Like, if anything, it bothered me more when I saw the original Marley, and I saw like how horrifying he looked.
I'm pretty sure the first one I saw was the George C. Scott version, and that was pretty terrifying. So, I mean, you take what you can get, but all right, so those things were pretty good. Let's get on to something that I actually do have a problem with. Let's talk about the Ghost of Christmas Past. Now, for this version, they do not have any existing Muppets. They brought on something new, and I kind of like it, but I kind of find it creepy as all hell, and I don't want to see it ever again. It is this like ghostly apparition that has a baby's face and head, but like just like a small ghostly body, and there's something about it. Like I do see where they're going with this. Ghost of Christmas Past, it's existed for thousands of years, but it has the appearance of something that's like an undead baby, but it's just so creepy and terrifying. I don't want to look at it. It's staring into my soul.
Yeah, from what I read, the way they made that puppet was they operated it in a tank of water and then just green screened it into the film. Like, I'm not sure what the inspiration was for it per se. I mean, the thing is with Christmas Carol, the Ghost of Christmas Past is probably like the most like has the most variety out of all the ghosts, because usually with the present it's the jolly guy, and with future it's usually the Grim Reaper, but the past never really has a consistent figure to them. Like, I see sometimes they're an old man, sometimes they're a kid, sometimes they're like in one case like a living ball of flame.
Sometimes they're
like,
a cricket.
Cricket, yeah. Like, the point is, like, you can take any sort of liberties with Christmas Past, so I guess they were trying to, like, test out a new form of puppetry with Past. And, I mean, it's an interesting effect, don't get me wrong, but it is kind of creepy. I will agree.
It's unsettling to me, and I think it's very impressive, especially when it opens the window, but yeah, like, altogether, I just find it unpleasant to watch. Doug?
Yeah, I wasn't crazy about it either, because I didn't know how it was made, and from looking at it, I was like, kind of thinking it was like a CGI creation, like really early CGI. So I don't know. Yeah, I didn't really gel much with the what they went with there. They honestly, they probably could have gone with another Muppet, given that I feel like they wanted to go with something that'd be familiar, something that would be soothing, because usually it starts out very caring, very very, very nice, and you can trust it, and then it gets mad as later on, as it's kind of guilting Scrooge. So yeah, I don't know. I felt like it kind of they kind of made it guilt him a little too much more. But yeah, I don't know. I was not crazy about what they did with the Ghost of Christmas Past.
Okay. Now, the Ghost of Christmas Present and the Ghost of Christmas Future, I think we can do as one, because they're pretty much the standard renditions, just Muppets.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, if you've seen any of like the old traditional Christmas Carol with like the guy with the big red beard and like the robes and everything, that's pretty much what he is in this. Like, and the only difference is that he changes size, and he apparently has a short-term memory, which I guess makes sense since he lives in the now. But I mean, at least they portray him as like jolly and happy and everything, and it kind of lifts up the depressing mood from seeing Scrooge's past. And he gets a nice song too. In the future, like, is your typical like silent Grim Reaper who like doesn't talk or anything.
So like, he doesn't really. I mean, I guess you could say he has presence, but he doesn't really have much presence.
Yeah, I mean, I still find it interesting that he is a legit Muppet and not just a guy in a cloak, though. Because, like, given how big he is. But, I don't know, it's like, I'm kind of surprised, too, because I would think with the Muppets, they'd try to do what they did with the Marleys and go a more comedic route to sort of, like, lift the, lift kind of like the brevity of the scene and everything, but they kind of stick with the whole grimness of like this foreboding future. Like, on the one hand I kind of like it because it's practical, it's more true to the book, and it gives Scrooge that pivotal point where he realizes to change his ways. On the other hand, I feel like it goes a bit too depressing at times, and I felt like they could have done a little bit more. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
I just found them both standard. I don't really have anything major to add to that discussion. I just, they reminded me of pretty much every Ghost of Christmas Past and Future. And some versions are a little bit different, but that is the standard portrayal of these figures. So I didn't really have too much of an impression. Doug?
Yeah, I mean, basically, yeah, there's not much to say on Future. Definitely that, it's basically the standard Ghost of Christmas Future. I always had this theory, too, when I was a kid, that the Ghost of Christmas Future was actually, like, there was nothing under the cloak, and that the ghost hadn't actually been born yet. being that it was in the future. So, I mean, I guess I've always kind of had that in the back of my mind with every single Ghost of Christmas Future. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty much the typical Ghost of Christmas Future. One thing I did notice with the Ghost of Christmas Present, aside from what you guys were all saying, was that it also was slowly aging as it went on, because it's like at first you see it with full red hair. They go to what you call it, Cratchit's residence, and you see it's starting to gray, and then by the time it's time to transition to Ghost of Christmas Future, you see like it's completely gray.
I mean, didn't they do that in like other past Christmas carols though? Like they kind of, imply that he only does exist for one day because he had like all these like brothers that came before him that only existed for like one day.
They did, but it is impressive for a puppet.
True.
Mm-hmm.
I am glad that they left out the whole thing with like the two kids though, because that never made sense to me when I was young, and I get what like they're supposed to represent, but they kind of like come out of nowhere. So I'm glad they left that out of like from the book.
My favorite riff on that is someone says, "Wait a second, do you have those kids under your robe?" Yeah, why, yes. Oh, that's creepy. Like, come on, man. I love it. It's just like, I get what they're going for. Ignorance and want are things that exist in the presence that are hidden behind everyone's viewpoint that people just ignore. It's not a very good visual metaphor, though, especially in today's context.
Right. Yeah, in that regards, like, well, I'm glad they changed some stuff with, like, with present. With the past, I'm kind of, like, a bit iffy. Because, like, I can kind of understand why they cut out some things, like, because if you see certain, like, older Christmas carols, they kind of expand more on Scrooge's past, like the one with, was it Albert Finney, I think, like, show how his sister, like, died in childbirth, giving birth to his nephew, and how, and how later on he became a greedy businessman who bought out his old boss, and then, like, showed him with Marley when he died. Like, stuff like that. With this version, they kind of, like, drastically reduce it down to just, a kind of, like, montage of his childhood, and then, like, a party, and then him breaking up with his fiancée, and that's it.
There's quite a few things in this adaptation that they shortened or cut down quite a bit. Like, they don't include his father, which is a big part of the book, about how, like, his father didn't want him and sent him away to boarding school. Here, he just really is into business, and that's not really what happened in the original version. He was always hoping for a father that was never there, and when his father finally came to pick him up, his father just taught him the ways of business and, brought him down a different road. But there's always, like, there's a lot of darkness behind it. Like, there's a lot of stuff with his sister, who died in childbirth, and why he hates his nephew. I mean, his nephew is barely in this adaptation.
Yeah, like, I don't, like, I get why they kept him, because he is part of the book, but given that they don't show, like, his mother and the whole significance of, like, why Scrooge doesn't like being around him and everything, like, it kind of doesn't, makes no sense to put him there, because it's just like, oh, he happens to have this one living relative who tries to get him to celebrate Christmas, but he doesn't want to, and then suddenly he changes his mind later. Okay. Because the whole point was that, his nephew Fred was supposed to represent, his sister, because the only person that ever gave a damn about him growing up was his sister, who ultimately convinced his father to bring him back. And it was and of course Fred lives on, continues that generosity by inviting Scrooge to his Christmas party every year, even though Scrooge always refuses. And that's when, the past scene where he goes to the nephew's party, where, he's seeing, like, all the fun he has and just how generous he is, and realizing that he's exactly like, his mother. and that he's been missing out and spending lost time with his sister through his nephew the whole time. In this, they just like completely cut that out. If anything, like Fred comes off as as one of those obnoxious guys that just goes around wishing everybody Christmas whether they like it or not.
And there's kind of another thing that I found lost is because they show the scene at the party where they do the guessing game where like there's always this game where they try to guess what this other person is, or like this wordplay game. It differs on the version. Here they include that in the past, but in the future he visits the party for 5 minutes and leaves. Like they don't even include him like saying, oh, when someone were to say tight as, the answer would be drum. Like in most versions they have a bookend. There's no bookend here.
Yeah, if anything, it just exists to show that, people don't like Scrooge, which, he should have known anyway, so it makes no sense why he's offended by them making fun of him.
Mm-hmm. It kind of exists in this version to kind of, like, be part of the version, but if you ask me that if you're going to adapt it this way without, like, all the significance of his sister and his father, then why is Fred there? Doug, thoughts?
Yeah, no, I can't really add much to that. That's basically what you said is accurate. It really, without having a lot of stuff there, then why is Fred even in the movie? But yeah, and then what you call it? Even having like the fiance there, it again, you really don't need her in there. It's just. Especially with the song that she sings, it's so... and I know we're going to talk about that. I know we're going to talk about that
We'll get to the songs in a bit, but I do agree with you. Like, there's just no reason for these characters to exist in this version. And it's strange because the past is the most neglected part of this version. Mm-hmm. The present is all there, for the most part. Like, you see the Tiny Tim stuff, and you see... where Christmas is everywhere, and the future, for the most part, is the same. You see a lot of the dark things. You see people, like, stealing from him in his grave. Like, all the iconic scenes, but the biggest things that they really cut were the stuff with the past, and I do think that does hurt this adaptation.
Yeah, I was going to say, because, like, a lot of the, movies, a lot of the story is taken up by the Ghost of Christmas Past. A lot of it is showing just how much he actually did love Christmas, and what happened in his life to keep hammering away and change that. So yeah, to omit a lot of this stuff, definitely you feel the loss of it, and it hurt. It definitely hurts the movie.
It's like it's like the Corella Christmas special without the office supplies. Like there's a past that is the mysterious nature of how he became the way he is probably the most compelling aspect of the character, because you want to know why he is this greedy old miser, what happened with him, what happened with his fiance and all this other stuff, and it's kind of glossed over here. And that to me is such a big part of the film. Yeah, they have a little bit with Sam the Eagle as his school teacher, and yeah, they have Fozziwig, and they're enjoyable, but they don't really they don't amount to what the original version is all about.
Yeah, because the whole point of showing the past is to make Scrooge a sympathetic character. Because up to that point, you don't really have any reason to root for him to change other than to lessen the suffering of everybody else around him. Showing his past and, what exactly turned him into the miser he is like essential for you wanting to root for him to turn about, if only for, his own salvation. And unfortunately, they don't do a good job of that in this, because they blow by scenes so quick, and they add no real significant, weight to it. It's like, especially, with him, with his fiance, it's like they show him meeting her in one scene and then immediately the next scene they break up. It's like, wow, you really had us rooting for that relationship. Okay. For fuck's sake, like in the Disney version when they show Scrooge, meeting I'm just gonna call her Daisy because I don't remember her name right now. When meeting her and everything, it revealed he's had a crush on her for a long time, and they show him being bashful and everything, and her liking him back, and you see how much they love each other. And then of course the next scene they do break up, but you could see that the transition with him becoming a business person, had drastically changed him and affected their relationship. And like, it's not just them talking, it's him counting his money and ignoring her and everything, and then saying that, oh yeah, I foreclosed the cottage, we're not going to be needing that anymore. Like, how did a version that is 26 minutes long do that so much better than this movie? I don't get it.
It's so weird too, because when we see him as a kid, like, the school version is faithful, but then you get to the Fozziwig version and he's all about business. All he talks about is business, and he's like, "Do you know how much this party is costing?" They spent so much. They essentially turned the past self into always being about business into being a human character.
Yeah, I felt nothing for the guy. Like, it's just like, oh, he was about business. He always was about business, and yeah, that's it. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, big whoop.
So, if I had to name one major weakness, it is they don't establish Scrooge very well at all, and the treatment of the past is really poorly handled. I think the present is great. I mean, I think Kermit the Frog plays a pretty good Bob Cratchit. I mean, that's pretty good casting there. I don't know about Miss Piggy though, because like she doesn't add anything, and like she messes up the names of her two daughters, and I'm like, okay.
Well, I mean, to be fair, she's kind of limited by her role, because it's not like Mrs. Cratchit really had much of a character in any of the versions. Like, at the most, she's willing to talk shit about Scrooge behind his back, as opposed to Bob, who, for some reason, attempts to see the better side of him, if only for the sake of, like, the children. But that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, she's still Miss Piggy, and she does get that nice moment at the end where she's, like, willing to kick his ass when it seems like he's about to, like, fire Kermit.
Okay, I'll tell you what, Mr. Scrooge, I'll give you a piece of my mind. I'm gonna give you a raise. Oh.
And I'm gonna rip you right off the paper! Wait, what?
So yeah, I think the present and the future is well handled for this adaptation. It's just the past that's kind of a little bit lacking in a lot of ways. And the setup is actually pretty good with all the Muppets and whatnot. Do you want to get to the music?
I suppose. I will say, though, in terms of, like, once they get to the whole part with Tiny Tim, they really add on the schmaltz and, the cheesiness and everything.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Like, I get, like, Tiny Tim's supposed to be, the poor little angel that, is a victim of circumstance and everything, and they try to make him as innocent as possible so you'll feel bad when it's revealed that he's died in the future part. But it's like with this, like, they really go heavy-handed with it, because like where they're talking about when Miss Piggy was like talking about, was like, oh, how was he in church? And Kermit's like, oh, he was better than gold. He said he hoped that everyone in the church saw him and felt grateful for how their own lives turned out. I'm like, ugh.
Now, that's partially in the original, but the way they delivered it was a little bit too much.
Yeah. And then it's not helped by, like, again, the schmaltzy song that follows it. It's like, if I want to watch a Hallmark movie, I turn this movie off and just go on the Hallmark channel.
Speaking of music, okay. I will go on record on saying that some of these songs are really good. Like I said, I love the Marley and Marley song. I love the opening number with Here Comes Mr. Scrooge. But a lot of these songs are boring. Now, I think the quintessential one is one that actually isn't in the version that I saw. I was watching the version on YouTube, Disney On Demand, and they cut the song out. It is the song that his fiance sings about how sad everything is, and I didn't personally hear the song myself, but I heard a little bit through your speakers, and dear God.
Yeah, like it's like they tried to do like that solo song for Cosette from Les Mis, but just failed horribly. Just
Because that song sucks in the first place. I hated that kind of song in Grease. I hated it here. I hated like this is not a good song.
yeah, like and I get why they did that, why they added it, because again, Belle only gets like 5 seconds of screen time. This, is supposed to convey more of her regret that her relationship didn't work out with Scrooge and that it was his fault and everything. But the song itself is just, it's bad, it drones, it's boring, and also it's horribly staged, because like as soon as she starts singing it, she kind of turns toward the camera, or at least looks off to the side of the camera like she's reading the cue cards or something, and she's completely ignoring Scrooge. She kind of just stands there off to the side watching her sing, and when he tries to engage with her, she just keeps walking away from him until finally he's like, okay, fine, I guess I'll just leave you to do your number.
God.
But yeah, the whole thing with this song, for those who like didn't grow up with a VHS, this song was not in the original theatrical release. I know like Brian Henson mentioned that he fought really hard to keep it in because it added, context to the scene and everything, apparently. But, Jeffrey Katzenberg said it was too depressing and the kids weren't paying attention to it, hence why they cut it. But then, of course, they said, oh, you could add it back in the VHS version because, home audiences might like it better. But even then, like, when it's been re-released on DVD and has been streamed on Netflix and YouTube and everything, they leave that scene out. And I honestly think it's for the better. Like, the only problem is it kind of makes the scene between her and Scrooge end abruptly. And it doesn't make sense, why Rizzo is, like, seen crying after that. But, like I said, the song is just bad. It's just so bad.
And it pads out the length of the film, because I was sitting there for a good, 5-10 minutes.
Yeah. Well, not that long, but it feels that way. And the weird thing is like they keep the reprise at the end, except they just change the lyrics, and they even have a pop ballad of it like during the credits. So it kind of like, for anyone who never saw the VHS version, those songs wouldn't make sense. It's like, they seem like a new song that suddenly became this big thing.
Oh God, Doug,
ask me to remember a single line from that song. Go ahead and ask me.
do you remember a single line of the song?
Nope. I just remember like it going on, and it's like, oh, it's time to say goodbye, and dear God, I mean, honestly, I can say that about a number of the songs in this, that they weren't very memorable, aside from like, the Marley, the introduction of Scrooge, and then the last, the finale song. But yeah, this one was particularly felt like a waste of time, because yes, it drags on. It's focusing on a character who's really got no reason to be focused on, given what, how little they have her in here, and, how much they omit. And then, to top it off, you have, like, Michael Caine going in there and just kind of, like, stammering out a little bit of the song, too, and you're not exactly sure if he's, like, really regretful or not. Again, I go back to saying, I didn't think in the, early parts of the movie he did a particularly good job. And here, it's, like, the worst, because it's, like, he just kind of awkwardly comes in. It makes sense that he would, go into that song, but it's just, like, the way that he tries to, like, not even really sing. It's just kind of awkward.
Yeah, I will say Michael Caine is a good actor. I do not think he's a good singer.
I mean, he tries, but yeah, he doesn't quite have it, unfortunately.
And Doug, I think you hit the nail on the head. There's a number of songs that just kind of are there. Like, there's this one in the present when they're sitting down to eat and they sing a song, and I checked out. Like, a lot of these songs do bleed together, and even the ending song, while memorable, is the same kind of tone. It's like the first two songs I love, and it's a shame because I love all the songs in Muppet Treasure Island, but not here.
Yeah, no, like with those songs, it's just like, yeah, I was checking out too, but it's like this one in particular just kept going to the point where, this is still going on. I'm like, I'm fading in and out of that one. The other ones that were, just there, it's like, I don't even remember them being there. But this one is just that bad that it just lingers there, and you don't want it to. You just want it to end.
Do you have to let it linger?
Do you have to?
Do you have to?
Do you have to?
Well, believe it or not, there were actually 2 more songs that they cut from this film.
Oh, God.
Yeah, there was supposed to be a song done by Beaker and Bunsen Honeydew, where they try to get like Scrooge to like donate money to the poor, and then there was supposed to be a song by Sam the Eagle, like, I guess about business or whatever. I kind of would have liked to have heard that one.
I think it would go something like this: business, business, business. Numbers? Is this working?
Yes.
Yay!
It is the American way.
I mean,
wait.
British way.
Well, from what I heard, you actually can hear those songs on the soundtrack. So I assume they must be online somewhere. I haven't listened to them, but I don't know. They must not have been important considering they were cut. But then again, there was enough songs in this, and it just would have made the movie so much longer.
And to be honest, the songs are what really adds to part of my frustration. Because you know how we mentioned about a lot of the stuff that was cut from the past? It feels like the musicals and the songs are meant to fill in the gaps, but they do it in such a boring way. I can't imagine, as a kid, liking a lot past like the central part of the film in terms of songs. I would probably be checking out, and while there is still a lot of fun with Gonzo and Rizzo and the Jelly Beans and whatnot, it's, a lot of the songs, I would probably be out myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I'm looking at like past films, and like the original Muppet film had a lot of good songs, at least like 3 or 4 that I can distinctly remember, and Great Muppet Caper had like at least like 2 or 3 songs that stood out pretty much. I don't really remember anything from the third one, the Muppets Take Manhattan, but then again, I didn't watch a lot of that growing up. I only know like, I think maybe 1 or 2 songs, and it's kind of the same for this. Like, there's maybe 3 songs that I can remember like singing at the most. Everything else is kind of like, eh.
And I can remember every single goddamn song of Muppet Treasure Island. That is a masterpiece of music. It is amazing. And you compare it to this and it's just, meh. But yeah, like, to be perfectly honest, in my opinion, this is not a bad adaptation. However, there are things that it does really, really well, and there are things that it does not. And in my opinion, the adaptation part, where it takes the story, is really hurt by a lot of these changes. At the same time, a lot of the changes work to make this a memorable adaptation. The characters and the stuff that they included, the meta humor, the jokes, 2 of the songs, these are what really made it stand out to me. but there are a lot of problems when it comes to the adaptation of the story itself, and I can see people not liking this version for certain reasons. Specifically, hey, it takes a lot of liberties and it's not the full story. It doesn't show the full scope of Scrooge. So, I mean, I still love this movie, but I definitely see the problems nowadays, and I'm glad I did not see the VHS version. So, Kat, what are your thoughts? Final thoughts?
I still love this movie. Like, I still consider it a classic and one of the must-see versions of Christmas Carol. Because I mean, it's the Muppets. Like, come on. Like, granted, it's not perfect. They do kind of mess up some of the stuff from the book. But at the same time, they added their own twist, like, with having like a narrator as the Greek choir, and then having two of the Marleys, and little things here and there. Like, they still tried their darndest. And given that they had just lost Jim Henson, nobody knew what the fate of the company was going to be after that. The fact that they still managed to pull this off, is still impressive. And I do like the replacements for him and Richard Hunt. Like, granted, I know it's not the original voices, but I still think they do a pretty damn good job regardless, and I still enjoy hearing them today doing the voices. So yeah, I will never not be impressed whenever they show the Muppets moving around, like on their own, like you see their feet moving and everything. That is still greatly impressive to me. like I will always admire that art of puppetry when you're able to do that. So, and like I said, this is still a great Christmas special. I will always be willing to watch it every year. I think it's great. It's maybe nostalgic talking, but yeah, that's just my opinion.
Mr. Doug.
Yeah, I pretty much stand by what I said earlier. Definitely I don't hate it as much as I did as a kid, but it's not something I'd want to watch every Christmas. There are much better Muppet movies. There are much better Christmas Carol movies, even for, child adaptations. This one felt kind of like it was tonally confused. Like, it couldn't figure out whether it wanted to, really balance the humor and the, the seriousness. It would, kind of, at one point it would pick one tone, and then at another point it would, go with another one. I didn't understand, like I said, some of the character choices. I didn't understand why they were so mean to Bean.
Yeah, poor
Yeah.
Bean. Keeps getting smacked around.
Yeah. And obviously what they decided to keep in and what they decided to leave out is, very confusing. Really, the only good particular parts are Gonzo as Charles Dickens, and really the present and future scenes. But yeah, I mean there was that problem of them being really schmaltzy with Tiny Tim. Even after he's dead, it's the schmaltz is kind of unbearable. So it's you almost kind of want him to be dead. I'm not gonna lie. So it's you raised my hopes and dashed them promptly. But yeah, I mean, overall, yeah, I'd say if you're interested, give it a watch. But there are better adaptations of both, other Muppet material and Christmas carols.
All right. Well, with that being said, first of all, once again, thank you for joining us for 75 episodes. And once again, happy holidays, whatever you celebrate. And if you don't celebrate anything, I hope you're having a good time. Whatever it is that you do, have fun doing it. Go out, be merry, and just remember that I am Zenith will rule.
And I'm Kat Macberrie.
And I'm Marley and Marley. I mean Doug Macberrie.
And just, do something kind for someone this season. Doesn't have to be big. Just, a little bit of kindness goes a long way. Have a good one, guys.
Merry Christmas.
God bless us, everyone.
Hey, this is Megami33. Thank you for watching Zenith Will Review. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more awesome videos. If you like what you see, check out the Patreon page at patreon.com/Zenith Will Review.